Hello, welcome to the second episode of Candleface Chronicles. I have with me Stacy. He is the premier remote viewer. He's going to help me make sense of the visions, the dreams that I have involving Candleface's victims. CNN called me a few days ago and said, "Hey, can you postpone this because we don't want you to take all of our viewers away from the debate." So I said, "No, no, I'm sorry. I gotta continue. You postpone the debate, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that."
No, they might have a medical emergency, from what I understand, which the media is trying to get the regular media is trying to get in the back door to report on it. CNN's
Yeah,
blocking them. They're saying, no, we have to be there in case there's a medical emergency. So,
yeah, that's. But I'm recording it, so right after this, I'll just jump on it there and watch that medical emergency, I guess. Well, today is victim number three. I'm skipping victim number one because that was the very first lost soul that came to me, and it was very little information. Uh, the lost soul that came to, I just couldn't understand most of what she was saying. Victim number two, I have a much more information, and that's likely going to be next week where I discuss victim number two. I have a potential name of who that victim could be. Uh, but I got to get a little bit more information. Today it's going to be victim number three, and I have a little bit of, let's see, I'm a little new to this. Where do I have?
Katie Paranormal's in the house. And it looks like the blonde, Sarah, I'm assuming.
The blonde. Okay. All right. Well, let me just jump right into it. Um, I'm going to share some slides. Maybe we'll do it like this. Okay, victim number three does not necessarily mean that it's the third victim of Candleface. It just means that's the third one that came to me. I've noticed that they're not necessarily a in an order that they were killed. It appears that some are older than others. So, but this is just how they appear to me. How they deciding who's deciding who comes to me is beyond me. So, victim number three means it's the third one that approached me. Now, what I did is I created some AI voices to read the testimony. It's a little hokey, but I think it's pretty cool at the same time. So if listeners like it, I'll continue to do this. If not, if people say this is really silly, then I'll just read it myself. So and it's about 5 minutes long. This is AI generated, but it's reading the testimony as I wrote it from the spirits.
3rd, 2023. As I was on the brink of sleep last night, a nocturnal visitor once again visited me. This time, there were two of them, one male and one female. Their presence remained elusive, shrouded in the dimly lit corner of my room, where the shadows concealed their identities. The male voice broke the silence, a plea for assistance. They yearned for me to be their conduit, to reveal the story of their demise and uncover the truth behind the individuals responsible. They seamlessly intertwined their stories with each word they spoke, piecing together a haunting story of their shared tragedy. Here's their story.
I traveled to Austin with my girlfriend to visit a childhood friend. Upon arriving at his house, we quickly decided to venture out for a night of partying. 6th Street offered many entertainment options, and we eagerly explored its nightlife. We visited several bars, each with its own unique charm, and indulged in the atmosphere, drinks, and laughter. After an extended night of partying, we returned to my friend's house. We gathered in his kitchen/dining area, where we continued to drink beer and a touch of marijuana. As the intoxication settled in, my friend began to speak of a threatening presence haunting his house with rattling chains and whispers in the air. I exchanged amused glances with my girlfriend, attributing his stories to the effects of alcohol and weed.
Ghosts rattling chains? That's straight out of a horror movie.
Exactly, ghosts are just a product of our imagination. However, my friend's demeanor grew increasingly serious, which only fueled our laughter.
I may have exaggerated, but there's a recurring presence here. She visits me now and then.
She?
Does she say boo and rattle chains?
Ignoring our jests, he continued.
She asks for my assistance, urging me to find others who believe in her.
What do you mean, believe? A somber tone crept into his voice as he described dreams featuring a disfigured little girl who communicates with him. Initially incomprehensible, her words grew clearer with time, and her messages became more unsettling.
I'm out of here. This is too much for me.
Why? Are you scared?
No, I don't believe in ghosts, but something about this story gives me goosebumps.
Believe it or not, Candleface rewards those who heed her.
Candleface?
My girlfriend and I erupted in laughter at the bizarre name.
She hears you. She's everywhere, always listening.
Does she have a list? Checks it twice?
I quipped as we laughed heartily. Laughing, our friend left abruptly, walking out of his own home and vanishing into the night.
Where did he go?
I don't know. Give him some time, he tends to get carried away. 15 tense minutes later, he returned with 3 strangers. A wave of dread washed over me instantly. One of the men held a machete, and the other a large tarp. Instinctively, I tried to flee, making a desperate dash toward the back of the house. The loose rug beneath me hindered my escape, and I was forced back into the living room, my heart pounding with fear.
He left you behind.
One of the men laughed. The man with the tarp laid it carefully on the kitchen floor.
Get on the tarp. It'll make cleanup easier.
Do something.
He abandoned you.
I won't get on that tarp.
I declared defiantly, my voice trembling. My friend produced a monstrous cattle prod and immobilized me with a jolt. Powerless, I was dragged onto the tarp. The man with the machete severed my hands, one by one, while another gagged me with a handkerchief to stifle my screams. My girlfriend watched in horror, unable to intervene as my friend held her captive, forcing her to witness the grotesque ordeal. She, too, endured the same torment, though they stopped short of ending her life too. They wrapped us in the tarp and tossed us into the trunk of my car, alive. Some of my blood was left behind in the house, unseen by detectives. We drove for what felt like an hour, the car filled with an oppressive silence. Eventually, the trunk opened, and we were cast into a dark gravel pit. My girlfriend and I were barely breathing by then, our lives slipping away. The last thing I heard before succumbing to my injuries was my friend's voice.
All you had to do was believe.
Now, I find myself in a nightmarish underworld, surrounded by tortured souls from all walks of life. Their agonized cries fill the darkness, creating a symphony of despair. The air is heavy with an unsettling stillness, interrupted only by the distant cries of tormented souls. I lie here in excruciating pain, unable to move, my body a grotesque patchwork of severed limbs. The torment persists, and I long for the release of death.
After the pair left just as mysteriously as they had appeared, I hurried downstairs to document their story. This marked my third encounter, and fear had long given way to a profound understanding of my purpose. I recognized my role, to share their testimonies and help liberate them from the torment that bound them within Candleface's nightmarish grasp. November 23rd, 2023.
Okay. So let me know in the comments if you like the idea of me playing the testimonies like this. If not, then I'll find a different way of doing it. Um, so the way that it works, I most of the time I sleep on the couch. I don't sleep in the bedroom with my wife. My wife is dealing with breast cancer, and the last thing I need is to roll over and hit her and hurt her. So I normally sleep on the couch or upstairs in the bedroom. So there's two different places where these spirits come to me. If I'm on the couch, it's usually in a shadowy area, nearly right in front of me. And in the bedroom upstairs, little guest bedroom, it's usually off to the side. It's usually just before I'm falling asleep or sometime after. That's why I consider them dreams, because sometimes you dream and you don't even know you're dreaming. So is that the case here? In other cases, I do know I'm awake. I've been in the garage tinkering around, and the garage door opens up, and I see it. So, are they dreams? Are they real? Other than dreams, or are they a combination of the two? This particular one was these two figures. They were mostly shadows. I could not really see them very well. There's been many now, up to 34 of these spirits. I see them very clearly now, but early on, they were mostly shadow. Sometimes I'll see a nose or a hand, because sometimes they talk with their hands, and I could see that as they come out of the shadow a little bit. But this particular time, there were two, and at this particular time, I wasn't able to ask questions. I was just totally motionless and silent. As time progressed, I was able to start asking questions, but I learned very early not to do that. They warned me that Candleface actually tortures them. Candleface, I even had a dream where Candleface took me through a tour of her hell, showing me what happens to the spirits who answer my questions, and they were being tortured even more. So I just stopped asking questions. Hopefully, but it seems like I don't even need to ask questions now, because I'm seeing things much more vividly, and what the questions I have in my head to what look for, I'm actually able to see now. The last few spirits, the spirits are giving me names. I had the last spirit say her name was Crystal, killed in North Austin, Texas. I'm getting addresses, or at least major street names, and cities. Luling, Texas, which is southeast of Austin, off of Highway 183. So I'm getting more and more information as I'm improving. But what do we know so far of victim 3 based off of the testimony we just heard? Victim number 1 and 2. Victim number 1 is a male, and victim number 2 is a female, and the look appears to be boyfriend girlfriend. According to the testimony, the victim number 1 is a childhood friend of killer number 1, because he mentions going to see a friend in Austin. So I'm making the assumption that it's a childhood friend. Both victim number 1 and 2 drinks beer and smokes marijuana. Both don't believe in Candleface, and they both made fun of killer number 1 for his belief into Candleface. And it doesn't appear to me that victim number 2, the girlfriend, knew the other killers. Okay. And then as far as what do we know based off of the testimonies of the killers, they were all male. They appear to be childhood friends of, or the killer number 1 seems to be the childhood victim, or a childhood friend of victim number 1. Lives in a house in Austin, Texas. Now, Is it a house or an apartment? Even though the spirit told me house, but I knew when I grew up, sometimes I said house when I really meant an apartment. So
Cabin.
I'm going to make the assumption that it's a house, and we know that drinks beer and smokes marijuana. This particular killer believes in Candleface and has, or at least, access to a cattle prod because he used that cattle prod to immobilize his friend. So could that person work in the cattle industry? If so, then that house could be on the outskirts of Austin, or maybe he uses it as a weapon. But it's somebody who has one, and if you have something like that, other people's going to know. Killer number 2, male, maybe lives 15 minutes walking distance or was staged in the area, because when killer number 1 left his house because he was frustrated that his friend and his friend's girlfriend was making fun of him, he left and comes back 15 minutes later with 3 additional people. So 15 minutes. It's actually, if you really want to get technical, maybe 7.5 minutes, because you got to get 7.5 minutes and then 7.5 minutes back. So it's within a block or 2 that this one of those killers lives in the vicinity of the childhood friend. Or they could have just been waiting in a car somewhere, like in an ambush. Killer number 3, male, lives within 15 minutes or staged, has a blue tarp, and he's used the handkerchief to gag the victims. Or it could be the killer number 4 that used the handkerchiefs. All I know is one of them used a handkerchief to stifle the sounds of the murdering. Austin, Texas. There are other Austins within the United States, but I'm making an assumption that it is in Austin, Texas, because all the other victims have been within the Austin area, the Central Texas area. I don't have a date, but it happened at night. The spirits mentioned hitting 6th Street, the very popular party street, at night, and then coming back. So I think it's safe to say that it happened at night. The killer's house, here's where we're getting a little bit more into some analysis here. The testimony says that there's a combined kitchen and dining area. Most large houses are going to have separate kitchens and dining areas. So it could be just a small house or a small apartment, but it's a combination kitchen dining room. And the victim number 1 actually slipped on a loose rug, and that's how the killers were able to get him and drag him back into the living room. So it looks like there's a living room, dining room, kitchen area, and then maybe a back door past that. And that's where he was running to escape his this torture, and actually leaving his girlfriend too. Isn't that crazy? He just like, I got to get out of here, and he takes off, slips on the rug. The killer's car, well, on there it says the killer's car, but it's the victim's car where the killers put his body and his girlfriend's body into his own car and drove him away. Law enforcement, he mentions in his testimony to me that detectives visited the house of killer number 1, his best friend. Why? Why would law enforcement go to his house? Was there an investigation? Was he a suspect, or was he a witness, or what? Is there an active, or at least at the time, was there an active missing persons investigation for either one, the female or the male? And the gravel pit, where is the gravel pit? There's many gravel pits all throughout Central Texas within an hour's drive. I'm making some assumptions here as well. An hour's drive changes depending on the date. Depending, an hour's drive on New Year's Day is going to be different than today, 27 June. So when I made this slide, this slide right here, possible areas of operations, this is a 60-mile range around Austin. I don't think y'all can see my cursor. Can you, Stacy, see my cursor?
No, I can't see the cursor.
Okay. So in South Austin, 60 miles extends further south than 60 miles in North Austin. So it's not quite 60 miles. So if you're in South Austin, it's probably 40 miles north. And if you're in North Austin, it's 40 miles south. So the idea here is just to get a good idea of a 60-mile range. Here are main gravel pits within the 60-mile range. And assuming you travel 60 miles in 60 minutes. If you're on the highway there, I-35 right down the middle, you could probably go further than 60 miles in 60 minutes. And if you're heading east and west, it's going to actually be less because there's less roads, more traffic, or more stop signs in smaller towns. So the 60 miles should be more elongated than left and right, east and west. That's why most of these gravel pits are going north and south. Also, gravel pits. What is a gravel pit? It could just be, when the Spirit said gravel pit, maybe he was just referring to a construction site that had a bunch of gravel. I don't know. So I just did a Google search for gravel pits, different companies in the Central Texas, Travis County, Williamson County, and Bastrop County, the three counties that we really see right there, and look for different gravel pits. So there's several up north, very large ones, and down south, the very southern ones you see there in Lockhart, some in Del Valley around the Austin airport. So it could be any one of those, or it could be none of those. It could just be a gravel pit. Somebody was building a house, somebody tearing down a house or a building. Who knows? But I feel if there's going to be any chances of finding these two victims, it's very likely going to be one of these. And why? Why a gravel pit? Why one of these? Did this victim or did the killer or one of the killers work at one of these gravel pits? Do they live near one of these gravel pits? Maybe killer number one lives in this house where the murders happened, but how about the other three? Do the other three killers live near one of these, and that's why they chose one of these gravel pits? So that's what I need to find out. These spirits are coming to me for two main reasons. They want me to locate their bodies, and they want me to identify the killers. Not this specific victim, but other victims have told me that if I'm able to find their bodies, they will be released from Candleface. It's almost like motivation for me, giving me that motivation to find them. In the near future, I want to discuss one of the victims that talks about being kidnapped, and the body is in the Georgetown area, which is just north of Austin. And I think I came up with the street that she may be in the vicinity. And she mentions if I find the batteries to her Walkman, I will find her body. And so that's in the Georgetown area, about where those gravel pits are. But that's for a different episode. For this episode, I'm curious to know what other viewers think. We have Donna here. She's on the top of her field, medium at psychic. We have some really good people here that can give great insight, and of course you, Stacy. I mean, there's no one better out there. I'm taking your courses. Very interesting. Very. Some people say, well, be self-efficient and just do it yourself. I don't need Stacy, right? I can just do it myself. But you've been doing it for so long. I don't want to spend so much time trying to figure it out myself, take 10, 15 years to learn it and then help the lost souls. I don't want to do that.
Well,
I want
you already paid for it, not just the course, but I mean, the military created remote viewing. We spent $40 million tax dollars developing the program.
Yes.
You might as well, use their scientific and, expertise, because they ran it for 20 years and they came up with a lot of information and techniques and things of that kind. That why reinvent the wheel? I mean, the military has already figured it out, so might as well make use of it.
Yeah, and I spent 30 years in the intelligence community, and I've never heard of it. So they must have been really, really classified for me not to hear it. And I was an intelligence officer, so I didn't know about it.
It was for a long time, and Bill Clinton came along and said that no, we're not going to be using that anymore. We're going to go hardware instead of wetware. So,
So Stacy, how can remote viewing help me? How can remote viewing help solve victim number 3?
Well, pulling down data, remote viewing itself is a technique in being able to determine the amount of information that you're getting, because you're getting around 250 gigs worth of information every single second, and your brain can only process about 64K. So you're dumping a lot of information because your brain has already decided this isn't useful information, so we're not going to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, at this very moment, you're actually seeing things in your line of sight that your brain is editing out. I mean, specifically the end of your nose. You're not paying attention to the end of your nose. It's there right in your line of sight, but your brain is editing it out. Getting past that, retraining your brain to actually pay attention to pertinent information, that while you were getting this communication, you were probably getting a download of gobs and gobs of data that your brain just filtered out because it was so focused on the empathetic side of the story, which is left brain. That's where we have empathy. That's our language centers, things of that kind on the left side, or in our left brain. The right brain is where the data comes in, and that's the logic side. You jumped hemispheres when you were, perceiving everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to the right side, the right brain, you can actually pull down a lot of sensory data that is just like your senses: smell, taste, hearing, all of that, of other things that are going on simultaneously, because all of that information probably, and I pretty much guarantee, was accompanying you at that same time. The decor of the interior of that home was probably shown to you, but your brain edited it out because you were so focused on what was being said in the story. You got little details with the rug and the kitchen and the living area, but you should have been able to timestamp what era we were talking about. If it was in the 80s, it was in the 90s. I mean, you can tell by appliances what era you're in, clothing style of the people. You can tell what they're wearing because they're, going out and partying. They have a particular style that they were going out to these clubs. If they had the big wide collars, it was probably during the disco era.
Yeah.
Things like that, you would have been able to pick up on or pay attention to, and you would be able to narrow your search to a particular era. 60s, 50s, 70s, whatever. Just based on the overall environment of what you were perceiving at that time.
Yeah.
Remote viewing in the courses, we get you to pay attention to these things of the taste, smells. I mean, the smells, it probably was marijuana. The tastes were probably not much different. But they could have had tacos at the bars, and having that taste in their mouth, they would have put you in proximity to a taco stand or a taco restaurant, things of that kind. Little details like that can be make or break in any murder investigation. It narrows your search.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely amazing. I hope I get to that point where I can pick up those details, or somebody would be able to pick up those details for me. I can't do it all myself. I wish I could.
Well, we get to a point where you're through the master's course. There's a technique called associative remote viewing, which you use placeholders to get yes or no questions answered. You're not remote viewing an actual target like your couple. You're remote viewing a scenic snowy field, as a placeholder picture, and then the other one is maybe a mountain range. And based off of the yes or no, you're going to pick either a mountain or the range, and be able to determine any number of things from a sports team, whatever. But we use it in GPS location on a map. You have like Google Earth. You can bisect your area, your Austin area, and then you can say, is this location north or south of this GPS coordinate?
Yeah.
Based on those pictures, you go, okay, it's north. And then you do it again. You bisect it the other direction. Is it east or west? And you triangulate over a series of remote viewing sessions, the associated remote viewing, right down to where you need to be.
So you don't do it all in one session. So it's going to
you break it up, and because there's an error rate of around 20% on any session, you have to repeat the process over. So you're bringing it down.
So how do I know it's an error?
You don't. When you bring it down, your first session, and you triangulate it, and you bisect, and you're down to around 60 feet, you start all over again. And if you come back to that same spot, then you're golden. If you go to a different spot, then you have to basically triangulate all over again until everything agrees. Once you've done that and everything agrees, that's your location, down to 60 feet.
Yeah. Stacy, do you know Donna?
No, I do not.
Okay. Yeah, y'all should maybe hook up there. She's really amazing. I've talked to her a few times, been on some other podcasts and talked to her a little bit. But yeah, she seems to be on point as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, anytime we can do that, hook up, whatever. I'm on Facebook. Sarah got me on Facebook, and begrudgingly, and so you can reach out to me there, and we can hook up and trade stories.
Yeah. So are there any questions? Anybody that's watching have any insights? This is all about being proactive and interactive. I wish I knew all the answers, but if anybody out there can think of something, or maybe they could watch the podcast again in the future and pay a little bit more attention to it. Maybe they caught some things that I didn't.
Well, I think your gravel pit has a lake. It's like they dug so deep they hit the water table, and it's now a lake. It's not a functioning gravel pit. It's an old gravel pit that they can't use anymore because it filled up with water. So, I mean, that in and of itself would probably help in narrowing things down a bit. People like to throw bodies into those lakes, those gravel pits. natural springs, because they, once the body goes underwater, that's it. Nobody's going down at the bottom of the gravel pit for any reason, because they're dangerous. You hit a cold spring, you can cramp, and you never come back up. So
Right.
people don't actually swim in gravel pits too often because of that reason. So it's a favorite place to throw bodies, is they're never seen again.
Okay. I skipped over this slide here. This is just me doing some kind of link analysis of the major players. Victim number 1 and 2 is the male and female. I put Houston there as a possibility. When the two spirits were talking to me, they kept saying, we left from here and headed to Austin. Here, I assume is Houston, because I live in Houston. They said from here. So I think Houston is very likely where they came from. So that's another major hint. Are there 2 missing people from the same time from Houston? Do they live in Houston or the Houston area? Victim number 1, of course, owns the car where his and his girlfriend's bodies were placed in. The gravel pit. Why that gravel pit? Maybe because it does have water, as you mentioned. How is killer number 1 associated with it? But it could also be any of the other killers as well.
Now, when they were describing the car, their car that being put into the trunk, did you get a flash at all on the type of car that was?
No. I think I may these days, because I'm getting so much better at getting the information. But this was victim number 3 back in November 23rd.
Putting 2 bodies in the trunk of a
Has to be a
car.
big trunk.
Yeah, it has to be, and which is typically an older car, a 70s level car.
Okay.
Like, a Cutlass or something like that. Most cars, even in the 80s, didn't have a very big trunk unless it was a Cadillac.
Okay. Now, remote viewing, how would I be able to use that to get more information on this gravel pit? Because it could be the car and the gravel pit are the 2 big things. Because if we find the car, even though I don't have a date, but if I find information on the car, there must be blood. Hey, and let me back up a little bit too. I didn't really mention this earlier. The victim number 1 did tell me that detectives did go to the house and interview him, but missed the blood. Did not find the blood. He says that there was blood because the machete went through the blue tarp and left blood. So if we can get additional information as far as was there an investigation, if we get some names of these individuals, find out when was this investigation, and go back to that particular house, that blood could still be there. If it's a carpet, a floor, maybe it seeps into the linoleum flooring or whatever, then we could probably piece this together. Have you had any, Stacy, or anybody that's watching, especially Donna, have contacted law enforcement, and do they pay attention to paranormal experts or those in the paranormal, or do they blow you off? I mean, do I just go up to the place and say, "Hey, guess what? I need you to go see this house because I had dreams."
Yeah. No, local law enforcement pays no attention to it. It's federal investigators. A lot of times will pay more attention to it, but it really depends on whether they're old school or new school. My experience has been with the retired FBI. They came away, and a lot of them too. The FBI had remote viewing training programs during the early 90s. So some of the old school guys actually know what remote viewing is because they went through the course via, DARPA. But local law enforcement, you know, I haven't had any success whatsoever. The Find Me group out of Arizona, they're a team of retired FBI, law enforcement, even Coast Guard and rescue. They basically do searches in the mountains looking for people who disappeared. You know, they do it all for free, but they use a lot of different psychics in order to narrow down their search before they send out the drones, you know, doing the aerial search.
Yeah.
But local, forget about it. They don't do anything.
Even if you just called them up or walked into the police station and say, "Hey, I have a hunch," they will just blow you off.
Well, no, they'll take all your information and make you number one suspect when the time comes and something happens, because they consider that to be a subvertive confession.
Okay.
You know, you're confessing to something you don't really want to confess to, but you're trying to be honest because your guilt is getting to you. That's what they're thinking. So they're gonna take your name down and all your information. So when something weird does show up and they do come across something, you're going to get your door kicked in and they're going to start asking you questions.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, because I did have, and I'll discuss this case later. One of the victims, victim number 11, female, came to me saying she was raped and brutally killed in a shack north of Austin, and saying that it was her boyfriend and a few other friends that did it. Somebody who read my blog actually contacted me and says, "Hey, I think that's somebody named Roxanne." And I found police reports, and it was, no kidding, almost exactly the same. She told me that she met up with her boyfriend in a hotel, because that's where they used to hook up, because she was just barely 18 and he was 28 years old. And both families did not approve of their relationship. So they're hooking up in a hotel. He starts pestering her about Candleface. "Hey, do you bleed? Do you bleed?" And she says no. He storms out and comes back with some friends, which is very similar to this, victim number 3. And then she starts getting concerned, so she starts grabbing her stuff to leave. And then before she knows it, she starts feeling weak in the knees and she falls. And she assumes that she was drugged. She wakes up in a little shack where there's men sitting on 3 chairs with. She assumes that more men were outside, and for the next several days she's raped constantly by these men, until finally, about 6 days later, or on the 7th day, when the boyfriend comes in and stabs her in the chest. Donna, I told this to Donna here, and she tells me she believes that she is buried in a shallow grave near that shack. So that's, a good hint there as well. And in the future, probably within the next month or so, I would like to get in more detail with that one, and hopefully some a dream interpreter, or yourself, or Donna, or somebody that has the expertise that I don't have, can get in there and pick it apart, and hopefully we can determine who this person is. A paranormal team in the Houston area, I won't give their names, I haven't contacted them to make sure that they want it to be broadcasted like this, but they did some research. They contacted the family of Roxanne, and they just hung up on them. They didn't want to have anything to do with them. He even contacted the sheriff department and says, "We believe where this conduit is having some visions of their case and wanted more information," and the police department never contacted them.
Yeah, you're going to get that. They typically have more bigger things to worry about, especially in the bigger cities nowadays. Simply because budgets have been cut, you know,
Yeah.
police have been canceled or arrested themselves for going outside what is considered normal, even if it's part of the normal training. They can actually get in trouble for doing the things that they've been trained to do. It's sad, but
yeah.
They're not going to go out of their way when there's no reward or incentive to do that sort of thing.
And I think maybe the only incentive too is they will look at me and say, well, how do you know that? And they could go after me.
Yeah.
Maybe I see something that only the killer would know, and then they now coming after me. And this whole Roxanne thing, believe, happened in 2006. I should be good. I was stationed in let's see, where was I in 2006? I was in Fort Drum, New York. So I should be okay. But no, Don, I would like to hear what you have to say. If you worked on cold cases, I think 30 years, have you ever came up with something that sparked an interest in you? Like, how do you know that? But maybe I could have you on in a different show in the future. I'd love to hear your insight. As a former analyst, this is just what I do. I'm trying to piece things together and see how far do I want to go in this. It's not really my choice, but
on the remote viewing side, everything remote viewing's in three parts. You have the Q, which is your question, always stated in the present tense. You don't want to ever state anything in the past because time works differently. You may actually be one of your cases, including the number 3, may not have actually happened yet. You may, because the dead can move through time like we move from one room to the next. This may not have actually happened from our perspective yet. It may have happened in the future, and they're just coming back and talking about it now. We don't know that yet.
Can you do remote viewing on your own death?
Yes.
So that you can prevent it.
Well, you can know what your you don't know when. That's the bugaboo. We can know what, where, when, or what, where, how, and why, just not when. It's because there's no parallax. Once you go into a remote viewing session, you can remote view the Civil War or the next World War III parallel to each other, and you can't tell the difference from one to the next because the information that you're getting is still going to be relatively the same. The smells, the taste, the sounds, all of these things are going to be relatively the same. So you don't know where you are as far as in the timeline is concerned. That's the bugaboo with remote viewing. We don't know when anything's going to happen. We just know it does happen, past, present, or future. So determining that is incredibly powerful, which is what I was talking about before with the car they were driving, the decor, the clothes they were wearing, things like that can narrow down that time band that we can't actually work with in remote viewing. We can assume a lot of things, but your error rate goes through the roof every time you start to assume things. So you want to be able to narrow things down on that level that are consistent with a particular time period. And that's the crucial data that we want to extract. And that's right brain information. It's all logic. You don't have to ask questions. You just have to pay attention to the things that you're being presented with. Be able to narrow things down that way. And the left brain is all the emotional side. We want to be logic side.
Okay. Now, does things improve as you get better at it? Does you start better information?
You're going to stay
more accurate.
You go through my course, my 30-day. At the end of the course, there's a 30-day, period where you're just doing sessions every day, one a day for 30 days. And I give you a target to go after, and you verify your own stuff. It's done through positive and negative affirmation. You do a removing session and then look at the news the next day, and what pops up in the news, those things match. Your brain actually creates neural pathways that this is now a positive thing, and it actually rewards you with dopamine, that this is a good thing. That learning, that neural pathway becomes inherent at that point. It's kind of like, you got your wife gets a new car and it's yellow, and now everywhere you see the same car going down the road wherever you go, because there's that association of your wife having that car. Either, oh, there's another one, and oh, there's another one, and there's another one. Your brain will just start to pick those things up before it ignored. And you'll have these, I like to call them spasms, of intense psychic events that will reaffirm all of the things that you are currently doing. And it's just a matter of paying attention to the data that's coming down, because you're getting it right now. 250 gigs of information are coming into your brain right now, and your brain is ignoring 99% of it because it considers it being superfluous, and you've been training yourself your whole life to do that ever since you were a kid. That's why kids have a tendency to be more psychic, because they don't know how to ignore that stuff yet. They get all this information, they just blurt things out that are just weird, but they're getting the information that we as adults have learned to edit out through conditioning. Remote viewing brings that back. It gives you that muscle that's been atrophied of paying attention to the information that you're getting. And you think your dreams are weird now, after the 30-day thing, you're going to have really bizarre dreams, because you're going to be paying attention to.
You mean they're going to get more bizarre than they already are?
Yeah, I'm telling you. And it's not just going to be about Candleface. It'll be about, things that are going to happen. You go to the grocery store next week, and there's a sale on something. And granted, at the time when you do go to the store, it doesn't seem like that's important. But for your brain, actually went into the future and saw that sale and saw that you wanted that thing, you're going to remember that. It's things like that. You're going to have more intense deja vu, all this kind of stuff. It's really weird when it starts to happen, but you get used to it pretty quick. And, people, my students, all come back to me again and again and again. So is this normal? This is weird. Yeah, it's normal. You'll get used to it.
Yeah.
But it's a new muscle.
Yeah. Well, it looks like was it called Udemy?
Udemy. It's a
Udemy.
combination of university and academy. They kind of
see.
the word together.
Yeah.
So it's Udemy.
Well, it shows that you've had 26,000 students. That's quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it too is that the way I teach is a little bit different than most people on Udemy. It's mostly lecture, talking head, me sitting like this, talking about what's going on. I give some examples and things of that kind, but
there's the link right there.
Oh yeah. I also have other courses on prepping on hoodoo and conjure. I'm a Apollo Mayombe priest, which is an Afro diaspora religion, similar to voodoo, Santeria, things of that kind. And hoodoo is, if you don't know, it's what was left over from the slave trade. A lot of the Africans that came over, they taught their masters how to do this folk medicine. It's Native American stuff too, but it's like folk medicine with the spiritual or religious tones stripped away from it. The Appalachia hoodoo uses the Book of Psalms in the Bible to do their spells and things of that kind. Yeah. They don't use the African deities or anything like that. It's actually the Book of Psalms. combined with the workings that they do.
Yeah.
But I have a course on that. I have cryptocurrency. So if you look under my name, you'll see all my courses, the course list. The vast majority of it is remote viewing.
Yeah. There it is right there. Yeah, I was very impressed. I'm nowhere near done because I want to absorb it and learn from it. I just don't. I'm a slow learner only because I want to observe as much as I can.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep going over and over and over again.
I think this is in your wheelhouse for real. I'm not. I would never was in the military. I grew up in a military family. I could not pass the physical. I had asthma, so and I tried to go into the Marine Corps. So they're a little bit more strict on the whole, physical ability part. But Major Ed Dames is the one that trained me in remote viewing, and when I spent my time with him, he is like a drill sergeant. We got up at the crack of dawn, running session after session after session, fine tuning all the things that I was doing and doing wrong, and corrected me in that. And I brought that with me into these courses.
Yeah.
But he was very intense. Military guy, getting my stuff down to a regiment. So I brought that into the course.
There's a comment here.
So you get people like me. I feel everything they felt during the crime. I'm also Native American. Yeah, that's the empathetic side of feeling what people are feeling. You can swing that around to be what is more of what it feels like in the room and what is the perpetrator feeling. Moving your focus from one to the next is an actual command you can give yourself. Move here, move there, move 20 feet up, move 20 feet to the south. You can literally give yourself these commands and your perspective will shift. And a whole lot of things start to come into focus when you're able to either back away or get closer or move from one direction to the next. It's crazy. It sounds crazy, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine feeling the pain from the victims. There was one particular where I did feel a lot of pain, but I can't imagine why somebody like Donna would want to do this if they're going to feel the pain. There must be some pretty good drive to help people solve these cases if you're going to have to endure the pain.
Well, it's actually bad to be that empathetic to your victim because you're not seeing things from a clear point of view. You're seeing it from literally from a fight or flight panic. And even people who are in the moment at that time, their brains start to shut down and their senses start to shut down. Their hearing, their eyesight, you will actually get tunnel vision because you're so freaked out. The military calls it, black, code black, where you're literally, your peripheral vision starts to go like this. Your ears start to ring. All you hear is your own heartbeat. That kind of thing you don't want while you're trying to get information about what's happening, because all you're going to get is that. Being able to pull back is, yeah.
Sorry, I'm still I'm practicing my skills on this
That's good.
program here.
Well, what I was talking about before, I got sidetracked. Being able to target these people is because there isn't enough information in order to get an anchor point. We could do a remote viewing session on queuing gravel pits in the Austin area that have murdered bodies in them
Yeah.
and focus on that. But we don't have a name that we can focus on. We don't have a time period. We don't even have anything outside of Austin, 6th Street, and a house.
Yeah.
We do have Candleface. We can target victims of Candleface that have been dumped in a gravel pit in Austin. That would be probably the closest cue that we could create. And even that's pretty vague. Because Candleface isn't a particular known spirit. It's not like Bigfoot or Sasquatch. It's not in the consciousness,
Right.
so to speak.
Okay, so I am right at an hour. That's my allocated time. I don't want to take somebody else's time away from them. Stacy, I really appreciate you being here. This is my second episode. This is all brand new to me. I'll figure it out one of these days, hopefully. If you
I
look
think
at
you're doing great. You're
Rob
doing
and Sarah or Richie B, man, they're just going nuts. I'm not as charismatic as they are, but hopefully I'll make it work.
Well, you should have seen Richie B's first episode. He was a hot mess. You're doing way better on your second show. So
nice.
There you go.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. This is a collaborative effort, so I hope y'all spread the news of this new podcast, and these are legitimate testimonies, and hopefully one day we could actually get enough information where we can find the identities of these individuals, find their bodies, and even put their killers away. So they don't have any additional deaths. This is my mission, whether I like it or not. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But I think now that I have this platform to get the word out, and there's plenty of great talent such as yourself, Stacy, and Donna, and Rob and Sarah, and there's so many others out there. Even though those that are just watchers or listeners, you could be the ones to solve this. Sometimes it's that one person outside of the arena that can actually solve it. So I appreciate it, Stacy, for being here.
No problem. And anytime you want me to come back, I will.
Okay. That sounds great. This next episode, I will give any kind of updates on victim number 3. And I will probably discuss victim number 2. That's really a good one. That's the one I've gotten updates, additional victims discussing victim number 2. So
nice.
I'll see you in the future. And thank you, Get Haunted. And by the way, I got their t-shirt on. So. All right, I'll see y'all probably next week. Next Thursday is 4th of July, so maybe I won't have one next Thursday because I don't think the Founding Fathers would like me to take away so many other people from 4th of July. So I may have to pass next week or do it on Wednesday. We'll see.
Hey, Danny.
Okay, everybody, thank you. I'll see y'all next time.
See ya. Peace.